Welcome to Building the Brand. This is a special episode. This is our first ever episode with guests from outside of TigerTough, and it's our first ever full episode to be available to the public. So when we launched this whole podcast, the point of it was to keep our employees in the loop. And people asked me, do you think you'll ever have a public podcast? I was like, yeah, I hope so at some point. Well, Jeremy, our sales director, and I were at the North American Cat Dealers Procurement and Fleet Group Conference, and we're at a networking event and walked up to Matt, and he says, hey, what do Claude and I got to do to get on your podcast? I'm like, ask. You're on it. There, you did it. You did what you need to do. So here we are. Matt Weber is with Butler CAT out of North Dakota, and Claude M. Williams III from Gregory Poole CAT in North Carolina. So before we get into this too deep, gentlemen, I'm curious, how did you get into fleet? Because I know when I was in grade school, everybody wanted to be a cop, a firefighter, and a cowboy, and nobody said they wanted to be a fleet manager. So how does one get into that?
Well, first, I think I'm going to jump real quick, and I'm just going to throw the disclaimer. Not everything said or heard during this podcast represents all that we represent. So some of these opinions are strictly ours. But appreciate you guys doing this. You know, it kind of started off as a joke. We made fun that it was the WTF episode. Myself, Weber, and a couple other buddies have talked for a long time about doing a what the fleet type thing. And that's exactly how this came about with y'all. You know, as far as how and why I'm in fleet today, to be quite honest with you, it's just because of the love of cars and growing up with a grandfather and a father that kind of kept me embedded into it, and then it grew from there. That's the simple answer. That's the passion side of it. How it came to be fleet in the heavy construction realm, that was kind of by happenstance and because my passion showed through in other things I was doing for our company at the time.
That's cool. How about you, Matt? How did you get into fleet?
Well, kind of I would say a funny story how it started. So it goes back probably about 16 years at a different company that I was working at. I was doing some kind of like warehousing, yard work, things like that for a company. And they brought in a consultant that had been a fleet director at a very large national company. So he came in as a consultant and was kind of checking things out and trying to get things to where they need to be. And, you know, I'm a big hockey guy up in this part of the country. Hockey's big. University of North Dakota Fighting Sioux hockey. And he had a Minnesota Golden Gophers jacket on. And he came in my office one day and said something, you know, just casual business, and I just looked down and I said, I don't like your coat. I just walked away. Went back to my office, went back to work, and a couple minutes later he comes walking in and he goes, that was interesting. So we kind of chatted about hockey a little bit, and the next day it was, hey, this guy's reporting to me now. I'm taking you under my wing and we're going to do this. So he got me into fleet, just kind of a little joking rivalry comment. Took me under his wing, started showing me the ins and outs of it, made it fun, and I just kind of grew the passion for it, like Claude said on his side. So kind of started from there, and I just took off. So that's awesome. If you're watching, Bruce, I owe you, buddy. I owe you big time for my career. Thank you.
Look at that. Leave it to the Minnesotans to help the North Dakotans along, right?
You guys always have to have a tie to hockey or ice, don't you?
Right.
You know, like.
Now, fun story about hockey. I've lived in Minnesota all my life. My mom was from Winnipeg, Manitoba. So you would think that hockey is just like breathing for me, right? Wrong. So I learned how to skate, but the only way I could stop was by just hitting the boards. I literally can't. So played again sports, got all my gear. I suck at hockey. But I can still appreciate it. So Claude, I want to go back to something you said for a second, because this is something I was actually pondering on this morning. You said your love for cars and for vehicles. I'm with you there. Love vehicles. Love weird facts about them. Like to play the guessing game of what's coming at me down the highway based off of the color and shape of the headlights. Do you think that makes it easier to be a fleet manager, or do you think it's easier to be a fleet manager if you're just moving stuff around on a spreadsheet, looking at costs and revenue?
God, that's an excellent question. And, I decided that I'd try and attempt to take part in this podcast while sitting in my garage here, and I'm literally at the main bay door, like looking at the vehicles as you're asking me that question. And I think it's twofold. I think any good fleet manager, any good fleet person needs to have some kind of academia around vehicles and what they are and why. But today's times have really turned it into another data-driven job, to be quite honest with you. And, for me, it's tough. Like I said, it's a passion. I look to my left and I've just got a garage full of just toys and junk and things that I see the gold in, where other people would go, why in the world is that even still on the road today? So I think it's twofold. Again, there's a lot of data behind it. I think there still has to be a passion to it. But, it's an evolving thing. I don't think you could ever put a computer in place or ever put a person in place that didn't have some type of respect for vehicles and fleet and expect for them to be a good fleet manager. There has to be that personal input into it.
What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Claude. It's not just filling the time between 8 and 5 Monday through Friday. It's your life. You start to live it, breathe it. You integrate it in every part of it. Your likes, dislikes. And the first thing I thought of when you asked that question, like Claude said, it's a great question. I have trouble driving down the road without looking at trucks, going, I wonder if they did a pre-trip inspection. Is the annual DOT good on that? Hey, their IFTA is expired on that truck. I see it. Does their fleet manager know that? And then I'm like on vacation. I'm on the Vegas Strip. I'm texting these guys pictures of buses on the Strip. Like, look, the DOT's expired on this thing. And it kind of never ends. So.
Oh, our last conference, we got on a bus and it broke down on the side of the road. And we get out and ask the guy if he completed the pre-trip, and he's like, "Huh?" And literally, it's a bus full of fleet managers going, "Wait, what? You didn't do what now?" Yeah, and then the other side of it, like you said, it almost becomes a distraction in our lives. I am very much a hands-on type guy, and I want to know how it functions and why, and the build side of it. And you guys have seen it. We've talked about it with seat covers and stuff that you guys provide. Like, I'm all about the torture test and what we can do with it. And now I've got a 12-year-old who is 10 times worse than I am. And, he takes and he looks at this stuff and he's pointing stuff out on trucks and cars and, fleet equipment. And I'm like, I don't know, buddy. Hang tight. We're going to have to figure this one out. Like,
I love that. And I'm glad you both said that, because I'm not a fleet manager, but obviously, as you know, I make my living with vehicles. But, you drive through a construction site that's like this.
Yeah.
Just about go in the ditch trying to see what they're running. And, I think it takes a special person to get as excited about an XL F550 or more excited about an XL F550 than a new Corvette.
Yeah.
I mean, we know the 550 is worth more.
Nowadays, you can't buy one of those for the same money. That's the scariest part. I think that's part of the cool side of it too, is it always lands on something that, most people don't even know about. They see these things as, fleet trucks are just equipment, and they don't realize what's behind them. Some of our own people don't realize what's behind it, or even the dollar figures associated with it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of planning, a lot of questions behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then figuring out what's necessary versus what somebody wants versus what's cool.
Yeah, wants and needs.
Yeah.
Must-haves.
Yep. Speaking of wants, needs, and must-haves, there's a question somebody here asked me today that I thought was really interesting. So let's go talk about COVID for a second, because why not? So when everybody's supply chains got completely upended, kind of a two-part question. Did that drive any major changes in what you're operating in your fleets? And did that, were any of those changes ones that ended up being good changes that you kept?
Go ahead, Claude.
I was just going to say, I'll be quite honest with you. For as bad as COVID was for us as a world, when it came to fleet, I think it actually opened up a lot of opportunities. Some may not look at it that way. I tend to, because I honestly feel like it gave me the opportunity to incorporate a lot of equipment and a lot of different styles and spec and types of equipment that we wouldn't have run if something like that wouldn't have happened, if we weren't pressured into it. So to a certain degree, yeah, I mean, I think it was actually a positive. It taught us how to operate in sparse times, how to kind of back up and punt and take on the next event, figure out how to, make chicken salad out of chicken and really, be able to still produce for our companies. It put a lot of heat on us. I mean, it's been a lot of extra added stress, but I think it really has helped us develop how we can do the same thing differently with other products than what we were just used to. And yeah, we're doing a lot of that today. We're figuring out that things that we did during COVID have worked, and now that's become the new norm.
It's interesting. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I agree with Claude. It for as bad as it was, we were able to persevere and make it through it. And you call it, yeah, lean times, and just you have to go without some of it, and then some of it you'd get an answer of no, and here's why, and the why would be so weird and off the wall that you just kind of throw your hands up in the air and go, oh, okay, that's what it is. We'll do something else, and those other things kind of fell into place, but it all seemed to work out. And it just, I don't know, it'd be really interesting to go back and just take a good deep dive on how I operated in 2020 versus how I'm operating in 2024. It's probably drastically different, but seems like it was seamless. But yeah, we're obviously doing some things way differently, moving quicker on things, getting some other input from folks we probably wouldn't have gotten input from. We've made it happen, and it keeps moving forward.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sorry, Claude, you were gonna say something. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I mean, he nailed it. Like that, for us, we were handed challenges and told to make something happen, and that really for a lot of us, that's what we ended up doing. Again, it added stresses. I think it was tough to always satisfy our internal customers. That's for sure. And I think maybe that's probably one of the big negatives we still deal with today, because we went through a time of, all right, I'll find what we can to get the job done. Now we're trying to get back to, having that standard product line up, those standard features. And as you tell people that, they don't like hearing it, because 2 years ago it was, cool, I'll find you something to do the job. Today it's, hey, we're trying to get back to a standard, and here's why.
Yeah, like the when you could be like, hey, I'll find you something, we'll make it happen, get it done. That worked. I mean, your ability to do that is awesome, because we're just talking to a body manufacturer, and they were saying how they'd have, people would, if there was a truck on the lot, you'd buy it.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if it was a Ford, Chevy, Ram, whatever, you'd buy it, put it into service. And they were saying for them, this company would be like, hey, we send you some Rams, some GMs, and a couple of Fords, and they're just like, because you don't just change the mounting brackets on the body and plop it on. But everybody just figured it out and made it happen.
You kind of nailed it, though. I mean,
Right.
Just what we were talking about. People don't know what goes into this. It's a truck. It's work ready. It's sitting on the lot. Oh, he's telling me they got a chassis. They're telling me they got 5 bodies. Why can't we make this happen? Like, guys, this isn't a 30-day turnaround, So, like Matt said, being able to educate and try and bring in some people that maybe in the past we wouldn't have, that's been crucial, too, because it has started to open up some eyes.
Yeah, once you get those stakeholders involved, and they kind of understand the whys, it changes everyone's perspective on it for sure.
Yeah, that can help you move quicker too, can it? once the stakeholders understand why you're doing what you're doing, helps get rid of red tape.
Sometimes.
Ideally.
Not all the time. It's not.
Not all the time.
Okay, I was pushing it.
Well, no, I mean, you guys have seen it. What was it like for, I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit. As a manufacturer of a product and good coming through those times where you had customers that were consistent, what was it like for you guys to try and keep up and try and take care of the quality and be a part of what you were supposed to be as this all happened?
Well, we had a distinct advantage is that our raw goods are made in the U.S. So we weren't waiting on any boats. So that for us getting stuff made wasn't as difficult as like we were mentioning before, different vehicles. You can't put a Ford seat cover on a Ram. It just doesn't. It's not possible. So then we also be like, we had one customer who was a really good Ford customer. Ram had vehicles available. They're like, hey, we need to switch our order to Rams. It's like, okay, we'll put those other ones on the shelf and send you Rams. Or somebody that might order. We worked with Schwann's, like their home delivery. We've been working with them since 1993, and of course we get their annual projections for what they're going to build, and then they come back to us. They're like, hey, the projection, we're going to build half of what we said we were going to, and they were ecstatic with that. 50% of the chassis that they ordered, they were getting. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that was all of us. I mean, if we were told anything was getting built, it was like great because we weren't just the zero guy. And I'll say for as much of a great opportunity as it was for us to try and build and do different things with equipment as a fleet manager, you just hit on the side of it that was like detrimental to a lot of us. Our mentality, how we were handling things, what our attitude was when we stepped in the office, because we're being looked at going, what are you doing? You're not getting me the vehicles I need. And literally we're spending every text, every phone call, every email, every web page throughout the course of every day, just trying to locate something to keep our folks going. I mean, to the point that every one of us leaned on each other. And if we found anything when it came to our collective, it was a text or an email saying, hey, I found this. Do you want it? I can't use it. And that's how we operated for 2 years.
That's awesome. Actually, that is something that I've noticed. So I mentioned like where we decided to do this was at the CAT dealers conference. That conference right there blows my mind every time we go to it. So there's like all the different CAT dealers from procurement and fleet and usually some other sprinkled in there. But it's almost like we're talking to one company.
That's probably one of the biggest compliments you can give us. You're talking to two of the past chairmen of that group, and we take a lot of pride in what we've been able to accomplish as a collective. Again, we all represent our dealers differently, but what we have found, and it's been a tagline since back when I was the chairman of it, we all do the same thing differently. So anytime we can find a commonality or a way to bring ourselves together and act as one, we always find that we tend to prosper that way. So, prime example, 3 of the surrounding dealers around me, I work closely with their fleet managers and their fleet administrators, and we build nearly identical trucks because then we know that folks are going to keep the inventory. We know it's easier to make a call. So if I only need 5, but they're willing to build 10, cool, these 2 other dealers will jump on board and pick up the other slack so we can get that bulk order cared for. That's become a big piece for us. So I really appreciate that compliment. I know our group will love that.
Well, that's good. Let's share it with them. Yeah, it's just we don't work with any other. I mean, we work with other manufacturers for heavy equipment and for other stuff, but I don't see unrelated companies working together like that anywhere else.
We've gotten. Go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say it's so unique in the industry, and it's special. It just when it comes down to it, it's just very, very special to be a part of it. because of the knowledge share that we have, and I think it's made all of us, all of our dealerships better, and it's made us better as as fleet managers and what we do, and better people.
100%. Yeah. All I was going to throw on there is that it's made us that much better that we even have great relationships today with competitors, quote unquote, because of the way we do things and because of things that they've heard or things that we've seen out there in the fleet world today. They realize that we all tend to come together, and they lean on us, or even, product improvements, things that have been done, to build a better OEM chassis, to build a better OEM body, and working with those manufacturers, we tend to selfishly have a little more leverage than some others because they know what we're willing to put into it and kind of the return they get from working with us in that sense.
I love the quote you just said. We all did the same thing differently. I like that. So it doesn't matter if you're in...
It's trademark. No.
Got the NACDPFG. We all do the same thing differently.
Yep. And it's been that way forever. Again, that was a phrase coined years ago, because it is. I mean, and we're all a little different. One of our best friends who's moved on to do something else, he was an analytical numbers guy. And I would call him and ask him what he thought about this style chassis and what it meant for depreciation and what it meant for overall value. And then the next day he'd call me and go, hey, does this thing actually run the way it's supposed to? Or, hey, could I outfit it this way and know it's going to work? Because he knew I was the touch and feel and the spec guy compared to his data side of it. So that's the other thing. We've also kind of learned our talents and our downfalls, and all have become better in what we do because we've had one another to lean on.
Totally saw that at the last conference happen, right talking about our product. There was a fleet manager from a dealership that uses our stuff, has for quite a while, and a fleet asset analyst who said, hey, what kind of an ROI can I put on these things? And so the fleet manager told him how things work for him, told him what he sees, and that's way more valuable than what I can say. Because of course I'm going to try to sell the things, but when Mike Mason tells you how it works in his fleet,
yeah,
that's way more important because you're doing the same thing.
Yep.
So let's shift gears a second here. When you're managing a ton of vehicles operated by a ton of people on the road every day in tough conditions, there's got to be stuff that makes you go like, what just happened here?
Yeah.
I know you've got to have a story of some sort you can share with me without incriminating someone.
Well, I'm just going to go back into the opening statement where I said not all things represented here. Go back on our... but I'm also going to throw out the whole thing of I used to love vehicles, and I say that a lot. I love vehicles. It's the people behind the wheel of them. That's the part you can't control. That's the unknown. I can make an asset. I can make something function and do what it was intended to do. I can't make the biggest piece of that asset do what it needs to do, though. So jokingly, yeah, it's difficult for us. We put quote unquote our babies out there and expect for somebody to take care of them, and you just never know sometimes who that person is that's caring for them. It's kind of like if you're not willing to make the relationship with your kids' teachers, you really don't know what they're learning. So it's kind of the same thing with our vehicles and with our fleets. Spending a little bit of time with those folks out there, hoping that they have some input into it, and hoping that they'll show some ownership tends to give us a little better return on them, but not always.
Right, exactly. Yeah, just to protect identities. Yeah, I'll just talk in general terms. But there's a number of things, and I don't think any day goes by that, I wouldn't text Claude or one of the guys and just go, hey, have you seen this before? They'll say, yeah, I have. Or vice versa. Because you can't make this stuff up, but again, it's, rewinding back to our passion for it, we've built this truck and put this out there It's a tool to generate revenue for our companies, right? And we're so proud of it, and we just trust that those that go in it, have the same kind of passion that we do. But in reality, they probably have a different perspective of it because they're doing something different for the company than we are. But but yeah, that's every day is. I can't believe that happened, but it's all good.
And then when this baby costs as much as a small house,
right,
medium-sized house, we had a fleet manager from a police department call us one time. He's like, "Hey, this unconditional warranty of yours," he says, "does it cover bullet holes?" And we're like, "Well, these seat covers are not bulletproof, but since it's unconditional, yes." He's like, "Well, we had an officer accidentally discharge his weapon inside the car and shot a hole through his seat." He's like, "But I'm not worried about the warranty. We've got bigger problems to deal with here."
Sure.
I've heard stories of people cutting a cup holder out in like the middle of their seat between their legs, cutting a cup holder out of the foam and sticking their drink down in there.
Wow.
But yeah, like you say, some of the things that you hear just kind of make you go like, "What now?"
Mm-hmm.
But I like what you said about just getting them to take some ownership of it, getting them to be proud of their piece of equipment. There's a cat mechanic I'm connected with on LinkedIn. Can't remember his name now, but he posts a lot of pictures of like cleaning his truck at night or on the weekend, washing his truck in the driveway on his own time, and it's like, this guy cares.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty evident in a lot of them, though, that they do take care of it, and it's their office and their toolbox and their
Yep.
they're in all day long, whether it's hot out, it's cold out, snowy, rainy, windy, whatever. That's their place to work. So,
speaking of that, with it being cold out, is there any special considerations? I mean, obviously you're in cold environment like we are, but is there any special considerations you have to make for your fleet that other dealers don't for the environment?
Not so much on the basically on the chassis itself. Four-wheel drive is a must on certain vehicles. I don't put four-wheel drive on service trucks actually up here for a number of reasons, but lube trucks, heated lube trucks. And things with cold weather packages, APUs with cold weather packages, block heaters for hydraulic reservoirs to keep things warm.
That makes sense. I never thought about having
even if it's if it's 20 below, customers are still running. They may be moving snow, and they may have a dairy operation, something like that, and they need to keep going. And if something breaks down, even if it's cold out, we need to be able to perform for them. So yeah, a lot of the cold weather packages really help.
Yeah, I never thought about having to heat a lube truck, but trying to pump hydraulic oil at 20 below would be not that much fun.
We're in eastern North Carolina. We're in all of Virginia. We're in South Carolina. So we have a pretty tepid temperature range down here. I mean, we don't get crazy extremely cold. We don't get crazy extremely hot, but we tend to see the edge of each of them. So for us, it's generally trying to make sure that we've got equipment for the guys and girls to be able to operate with out in the field that they're comfortable with, that can handle what we're into. A great example is we now use a body manufacturer here in the Southeast a lot more because of things that we learned from the group up at Matt's dealership. We realized that this OEM manufacturer created a truck that could withstand salt and heavy conditions when it came to the snow and the ice and the debris that's out there. And we're like, okay, well, we share some of that on the coast of North Carolina, on the coast of South Carolina. So if it's lasting and it's operating up there, why can't we run it down here? So I mean, we definitely take, climate into consideration. We take, where these folks are working. You guys are a partnership of ours because of what we work in. The silt and the sand and the mud piles and the red clay that we operate in down here terrorizes our trucks. I mean, from under the chassis to the interior of them. So, that's what brought up you guys. We were destroying trucks, and you go roll up to a customer site in a $300,000 truck, and you get out, and technician's standing there with his pants ripped because the seat's no longer existing. It doesn't look real good for the type of company you are. We're representing ourselves 10 times out of 10 as a premier product, and if we don't look that way, it's hard for a customer to believe it.
That's
100%.
fair. And then there's the whole thing where once the truck starts to get tore up or worn out, people treat it like that, don't they?
Oh, certainly.
So if you can keep it in good shape for longer, they're gonna treat it like it's nice longer.
And that's you bring up a really good point. I think something that we try and do is push that to our end user group so that they understand that, trading a guy out of a truck every 3 to 6 months generally doesn't work. And just because a new truck shows up doesn't mean it should go to your tenured tech. Maybe sometimes you need to look at the guy that's been driving a piece of junk for the past year and see how he's treated it, and maybe that new truck needs to go to them. There's still a lot of old school thought out there, and don't get me wrong, I agree too. Tenure should get you something, but it shouldn't always get you everything. It doesn't mean that you're always the top. It just means you've survived it that long. I got 20 years where I'm at, and I'm not the top. I've just survived it, and I've made some decent choices along the way.
That's a long time to be in the same spot. That's impressive.
Impressive, clinical. It's all in how you look at it.
I'm going to use the term impressive.
All right, we'll go with that.
On that, so this podcast is called Building the Brand because our mission as a company is to build a brand that blue collar Americans can be proud of. So that's who we're talking to is blue collar Americans all day, every day. I would love to hear what each of you would have to say to somebody that's in school now, looking at what they're going to do with their life. Do they go into the trades? Do they go into college? What do they do?
Go ahead, Matt.
We'll flip a coin for this one, Claude. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Yeah. I think we'll both slide down this path together, but you lead.
Right. No, that's a great question. Hardworking Americans. I'm going to detour a little bit, and I'll answer the question. But like fleet management, it's a support function for our dealerships. We're there to support those in the field, whether it's tools, equipment, trucks, administratively, regulations, things like that. But I always tell the groups that I present to within our dealership that when you think about it, at the end of the day, it's the equipment that we sell and that we fix is what's building the roads so we can get to school, so we can get to work, so we can get to the hospital, so we can get to the grocery store. And it's also the equipment that's running these American farms that's putting the food on the table for all of us as Americans, right? Mm-hmm. So going into those trades, I think is just it's understated. It can't be stated enough. And we have a very, very proud, very robust recruiting strategy at our dealership that works with trade schools, recruits these kids, helps them along the way because I have a senior in high school this year that's looking at the prospect of going to college, and that's a lot of money that these schools are charging for tuition. After 4 years, you're accumulating a lot of debt. You can still accumulate debt in trade school, but that's the backbone of America. Plumbers, mechanics, electricians, all of that. That's what makes the world go around. Makes America work. Let's say it that way.
Say it the real way. Makes America work.
America. There we go. Yeah.
I'll throw another spin on that. I'm just an old farm country boy that grew up in eastern North Carolina working on junk and picking tobacco and plowing fields and, grew up around 5 different farmer groups and working for them and, got lucky enough that I had contacts that were willing to write me a letter to get me into college. I shouldn't have went, to be quite honest with you. I probably should still be plowing fields and dealing with that kind of stuff today. Um, Later on in life, I get through it. I get the opportunity to use a little bit of what I did in college as well as more of the practicality of what I learned when I was younger, doing those types of jobs and roles. And I end up marrying a dean to a college. So I look at it, and there's 2 different formats that live in my house. I look at my 12-year-old and go, I know what mom wants you to do. I know what dad wants you to do. So what's the happy median? It's tough today. I look back on it now and I'm very appreciative for what I got to do with a college degree and having that time and that opportunity. Did it make me a better fleet manager today? Is it going to help me in the next steps of my career? I'm not sure. So as I look at it and I look at, everyday folks today, especially these kids that are coming up, it's like, just do what interests you, do what you love. And if that path takes you to a trade, great. If that path takes you to a 2-year, a 4-year, to get a doctorate, do it. Do exactly what you like, but do it within your means. And I know that's difficult today as well, but there's opportunities, there's things out there. I've tried to educate myself a little bit before I talk out of my butt when it comes to talking about, student loans and things of that nature, because I hear it, I listen to it from my wife's side of it. We battle today. A prime example is we lost a 2-year technician that went through our apprentice program, and he decided his younger sister was going back to college and that he wanted to go to college because he felt he missed out on it. So he quit being a technician and went back to college and actually went to where both kids are, where my wife is a team. And it's like, we battle all the time. All right, who are you going to steal next? And we say the same thing because you get some of these kids that get into their first year or their second year and they go, oh no, this isn't for me. I can't do this. Or the debt's piling up and mom and dad are wondering if there will be a return. So again, as far as I'm concerned, you just got to do what you love and hope that you have the means to do it, whether or not that's trade or college.
There's 2 things that you said that stood out to me that I really like. Number one, what you just said, do what you like. If you want to be a technician, if you want to be a welder, if you want to be a plumber, there will never not be a demand for your job. So go do it. But if you want to be a CPA, then go be a CPA. It's like that's great. But the other thing that you said, like you said, you grew up plowing fields and picking tobacco and working on junk. Doing that and having, I think that gives you a different perspective than growing up not doing that and then going to school and expecting to be the CEO when you graduate.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation we have here often. My kid, and I'm not boasting, he's extremely smart, and it's not because of me. I don't know that it's because of his mother. I think it's the times that he's come up in and the opportunity to be connected to so many different things that he enjoys. So he's been able to educate himself. There's a lot of benefit to that. As much negative as there is out there today when it comes to our connected internet and socials and whatever else, there's a lot to be taken from it as a benefit as well. And, we have the discussions all the time. Since he was 4 years old, he said he was going to be an engineer and he was going to Clemson University. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. At 12, he's still saying he's going to do it. But then he comes out in the garage and figures out that dad knows how to build a 3-wheeler out of something that used to be a 2-wheeler. And he's like, wait, you can do that? Yeah, I can. Like,
You don't need a piece of paper to be an engineer. I do air quotes engineer because garage engineer versus Clemson engineer are probably somewhat different, but
yeah. For my means, I can make it work. For the means of selling it, probably not so much. Like,
that's fair. I can't speak with authority on it. I never went to college. I just went to the school of figure it out as you go. My dad got me into sales when I was just a little kid, traveling around with him. Like, hey, today you're selling paint pens to my customers. See how many you can sell. And thought I wanted to be in sales for the rest of my life. Got a chance to try marketing. It's like, hey, this is my happy place.
See, that's
But
really cool, though. I mean, you were put into it. You were thrust into it. You were challenged with it, and you made something of it. It actually led you to your path.
yeah, would college have helped? Maybe. I don't know. I'll never know.
Yeah.
All right,
Right.
this has been
I
good,
look
guys.
back at that.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
go ahead.
Matt.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I look back on that too and go, hey, you know, the calculus class that I took or the physics class that I took, did that was I able to spec that truck differently? Or was it like the sociology class that I got out of bed for and actually went to? Like, I understand how people tick now. Now I get it. Now I was able to do that. So
There you
I
go.
don't know.
Which is pretty telling of this podcast, by the way, too. It's funny you would bring the two of us on together. I mean, we're connected for multiple reasons, but I tend to talk too damn much, and he is, walk silently with a big stick over there. So when Matt talks, you listen. When Claude talks, you go, "Oh God, he's doing it again." So it's like,
Well, the reason we wanted Matt on is because of his cool hairdo.
well, he's
That's
part of the
right.
group, part of the group.
Yeah. But I don't know, Claude. You win bonus points for repping the brand with your hat, man.
Okay, well here I've got product placement as well, if that helps.
There we go. So Claude's having steak tonight. We know that. That's a good
Yep,
thing.
that's exactly right. Yeah. Oh
Well,
man.
I've had a blast, guys. Anything either of you want to add before we wrap this up?
I, I'm curious. You brought up the fact that this is all about building the brand. I kind of get that it's the times right now, but what really drove you guys to want to do the podcast? And I'd love to know what your hopes are with expanding it next. We're very appreciative to be your first outside guest. It's really cool. But what's next and why?
Okay, so like I said when we started, it was just to keep our team updated because we used to have a like once a quarter, sometimes even once a month earlier on, everybody would gather together in a half circle on the factory floor and talk about how last month went and call out somebody for doing good and kind of go over plans for next month. But now we've got 2 locations in Minnesota. We've got salespeople that are remote, and we're just shy of 100 people. So that's a pretty big half circle. So that's why we're going to do this podcast. Just keep our team updated. But getting into it, I was like, man, I would love to have a spot where we can get industry professionals together. And I use industry as a super, super broad term because I'm almost talking more blue collar. I've guys like yourselves who have been managing multi-million-dollar fleets for a long time know how to build a truck, know what works, know what doesn't work because you learned it the expensive way. To get people that drive those trucks, that operate heavy equipment, to get people that are making stuff in the USA, because that's what gets me fired up, is to know that our drive in the USA to make stuff, our drive to figure stuff out, our drive to be the best is not dead. Like it is alive and well if you're talking to the right people. And with what we do for work every day, same as with what you guys do for work every day, you're talking to those people. I mean, you are those people.
Yeah.
So that's a really long-winded way of saying that if I had my way and everything went ideally, this podcast would be a spot for blue-collar Americans to get together and show off what we got going on.
I don't know that you could answer any better. I'm excited for you guys. Selfishly, like I said, we talked about this and always talked about wanting to do it because we feel like there's so much to talk about in the fleet world, and there's always a crazy story, or there's something that maybe somebody doesn't know and we would dive into it type thing. But especially for you guys, to bring in the celebrities of the blue collar and the everyday worker would be fantastic. There's 1,000 podcasts out there, 100,000 podcasts if I'm not mistaken, plus. and most of them are centralized around a direct point, be it a murder mystery or true crime or a celebrity, and there's not a lot that truly celebrates going out to somebody's farmland and going, why have you done this for the past 50 years? And listening to that old man. I give a lot of my credit today to that, because that's what I did. I listened to the old men that told me how they got to where they are and how they survived it, and carried some of that old school knowledge with me. We hear it today, and it's all too easy for the youngsters, the youngins coming up to push aside what the old folks say. And I think we've officially started to hit those numbers of being old. But it's like, I promise you, for everything I'm spitting out at you, there's something you're going to learn from it. Just please listen.
Fantastic. I think we're all on the same page. Guys, thank you very much for being our very first non-TigerTough guests on Building the Brand. I hope we can do this again in the future. And until then, we'll see you on the next one.
Look forward to it. Thank you.